Hey guys, how you doing? Mita kulo. Mina olen Julio ja mina opiskelen suomea. So I said it, I'm studying Finnish, which is actually a language I started learning back in 2003 because I used to have some friends of Finnish, actually some Finnish friends because where I live in Osaka, it's close to a place where there used to be a Finnish school for missionary kids, which is called Yasuko, in the state of, or prefecture, as we say here in Japan, in the prefecture of Shiga. So there used to be a school there, and I started making friends, and because of that, I got interested in the language. Usually, that's the way I got into learning a language. So, okay, let's try to get some quick facts about the language. So, the classification of the Finnish language is a Uralic or Finno-Ugric. So, in a more distant way, more remotely, it is related to Hungarian, even though I've heard that people saying that they don't feel that the languages are related at all. And if we get a more close language, it is related to Estonian, but I don't know to which extent they're intelligible. Okay, so but Finnish people, I've checked, and apparently there's some minorities in several countries, such as Sweden, Norway, Russia, Estonia. And there's also Finnish in Brazil. I remember about this. There's a city in southern Rio de Janeiro called Penedo, which I'm going to read now, so I won't say anything stupid. So it's founded in 1929. It's the Finnish colony of Penedo is a touristic neighborhood where the material that helps preserve the memory of its colonizers is kept. It also has hotels and inns to serve the most demanding kind of tourists that visit the region. Besides that, it offers near 40 restaurants of high-end national and international gastronomy. And the typical dishes of trout, sorry, I don't only know the name in Portuguese, as well as inviting bars and cafes. And the abundant market of small stores scattered throughout the commercial center in a small and big shopping malls. Another attractive of the Penedo region is a Santa Claus house, which is famous by its grand and luxurious Christmas decoration that fascinates children and adults. I'm going to put this link here. It comes from Rio Tourism Association called Rio Tour. So just so you can have a reference. And as I said before, why study Finnish? So in my case, it's because of my friends, but I think there are several reasons why people start learning a language. In my case, it's usually a personal thing. So maybe people have a relationship, a boyfriend or girlfriend from Finland. Anything that helps you learning, because I think personally I just don't learn the language because maybe people told me, like recently a lot of people have been asking me, why don't you learn, what did he ask me? Why don't you learn Catalan? Why don't you learn Thai? So it's not that easy. I must have a proper and solid reason to start learning. I must have a genuine interest. It's a language I want to speak. Language in which I want to read, so there must be a reason. So and Finnish is one of those languages that I wanted to learn because I wanted to talk to the people. They became my friends, and I have contact with them. So I have friends in Helsinki, in Turku, in Tampere, so many cities in Finland, and I intend to visit the country one day. All right, so maybe oh yeah, speaking about language that we learned, I see something very interesting. And that leads me to think about if the language is difficult or not. So is Finnish a difficult language? I don't like that kind of questions. Saying that a language is difficult. So we should put the context. Is it difficult to whom? But interestingly, most polyglots I see out there, they don't try more rare languages, if I will, or languages that are not in the Germanic or Latin languages, or Germanic, Slavic, and Romance languages. Usually people get in those groups, so like they learn German, Swedish, and Dutch, for instance. By the way, I'm learning Swedish and Dutch. There's nothing wrong with that. So some people, they just stay in the group, like the Latin languages, so Portuguese, Spanish, French, that kind of stuff. And the Slavic group, so people learn Russian, Polish, which I'm learning, by the way, and get some southern Slavic languages such as Serbo-Croat and Macedonian and things like that. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you stay only in those groups, probably you won't get the interesting thing about languages, which is to learn something that is very different and challenging. But okay, let's try to compare Finnish. Okay, so most people think it's a very difficult language, but I don't think it is, because by the time I started learning Finnish, I already spoke Japanese. And let me take a look at my notes here. But some things that caught my attention. So because Finnish, even though it's a language spoken in Europe, is not an European language. It's considered, as I said before, Uralic or agglutinating language. And in that aspect, it has some similarities with Japanese, for instance. So people used to tell me, oh, Finnish is very difficult. We have 18 cases. But of course, just like it is the case of German, which only has 4. You won't learn that all of them at the same time. You learn that, I think, in context. When you do that, it's not that difficult. People say, oh, it has 18 cases. It's very difficult. But let's compare some things here that got my attention when I started learning. For instance, if I say in Japanese, I live in Osaka, I'm going to say, watashi wa Osaka ni so Osaka. And in Japanese, we have postposition, which is called also particle, which some people say is a leftover of a declination. But whatever the case is, so Osaka ni. All right, keep that in mind. Osaka ni, watashi wa Osaka ni sundeimasu. So I live in Osaka. If I want to say that in Finnish, even though the order is different, they use a S, SVO. So they're going to say asun, mina, me. So mina asun Osaka sa. That's a very interesting thing, because even though the order is different, in Japanese is you say I in Osaka live. In Finnish, you say I live in Osaka. But what got my attention is how do you say in Osaka? Because in Finnish, they say Osaka sa, because sa means a place. I think it's a fixed place in this case, no action at all, it corresponds to Osaka ni in Japanese. So watashi wa Osaka ni sundeimasu. And you say in Finnish, mina asun Osaka sa. So when you look at that aspect, it's not really that difficult. So I didn't really struggle to learn this case, because in my mind, I just tried to, I consider sa being the same as ni in Japanese. Does it make sense? So to me, it wasn't difficult to learn that. But if you only know an European language, that this concept of postposition or declination might be a little difficult. It wasn't for me. I mean, cases. All right. Another interesting thing that I found is like when you want to ask a question in Japanese, usually you put the particle ka at the end of the word, and we have something similar in Finnish. For instance, let me see. Ko. Let's use the same verb. So let's say use a verb to live. So let's say, do you live in Osaka? In Japanese, it will be Osaka ni sundeimasu ka? Osaka ni sundeimasu ka? So ka at the end indicates that it is a question. If you're going to say that in Finnish, you say Sinä asutko Osaka sa? So right after the verbs, which would be asut, is the second person for the verb to asu. So when you want to ask a question, you put ko at the end of the verb, asutko, which is the same as the ka in Japanese, but in Japanese it comes at the end of the sentence. But I think you gotta get the idea. So in Finnish, you ask questions with ko, in Japanese ka. So and there are actually many other aspects which I intend to explore more in the future. But that gives you an idea that a language being difficult depends totally on your history of language learning. I mean, what languages you know. For instance, if I only knew European languages, maybe they'll be difficult, but in the end, you just get used to that. So to me, there's no difficult language. I think that the language that is difficult is maybe the one you're not really interested in learning, and you don't dedicate time to learn. So that's it. I wanted to share that I'm studying Finnish, and I hope I can improve to the point of making a video in Finnish someday. All right, thanks for watching this video. Please support my channel. If you're not subscribed here, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to hit like if you like this video. If you want to support my language learning journey, you can support me on Patreon, because I share the materials that I use for language learning, including Finnish. You can also be a member of this channel to support my work here. That's it. Thanks for watching, and kiitos. Hey.